Hello, this is Jim Stockstill, and I'm bringing you another teaching from the program entitled The Handwriting on the Wall. And it's my purpose this morning to bring you the keys to understanding Daniel. So let's get right into this right now and understand the keys that allow us to understand Daniel. And the first key is that the dreams of Nebuchadnezzar and the visions of Daniel all concern the geographical area of Babylon, of ancient Babylon, and the nations that would occupy that area. There's so much confusion and misleading, but they're taking Daniel out of context to get all these convoluted theories that they've got convoluted. So let's just look at it. In order for a kingdom to meet the criteria of Nebuchadnezzar's dream and Daniel's vision, they had to rule the geographical area that King Nebuchadnezzar ruled and had the city of Babylon their capital. Rome doesn't even play into this. They never met that criteria. They never had Babylon their capital. The rest of them do. Now I'm going to summarize a lot of things that I've taught before we get into this. Another thing that I've noticed is that the four kingdoms that Nebuchadnezzar and Daniel talk about not only included Babylon as their capital, but they also had the territory of Turkey in their boundaries. Sometimes maybe not all of Turkey. Greece had all of Turkey. Babylon had part of Turkey. Seleucid had Turkey, the Seleucid Empire, and the Medo-Persians had Turkey in it. So this area right here is where the Antichrist is coming out of, and he may already be in our midst, and he may already be executing some of his plans in the Mideast. We know that the Mideast is establishing their caliphate, that Turkey is being restored as the seat of the caliphate, and that's the old Ottoman Empire that was dissolved in 1923 by Britain. We know these things, so we know that the United States has been a major player in helping establish the Islamic Caliphate, that they're in league. The United States is in league with Turkey and the Muslim nations and Islamic nations under the leadership of Barack Hussein Obama, that this is what is happening. So we don't have the veil pulled over our eyes. We understand what's going on. We see there's illumination on what's going on. Okay, let's talk again. We're going to go over the four empires that would rule the area of Babylon and the area of that Nebuchadnezzar saw and Daniel saw. Well, let's go over those four empires. Okay, now we don't have any trouble identifying the first three. You know, it was Babylon and Medo-Persia and Greece. Where we have trouble is identifying the fourth. But about 3 or 4 years ago, I was reading Daniel chapter 8, and all of a sudden, wham, it just hit me like a ton of brick that it was very evident. It was come out of the Grecian Empire. Let's go over this. Remember Daniel. Remember Alexander the Great. I'm sorry. Alexander the Great, he was the great horn. So the text says that when the great horn is very great, it'll be broken. That means that Alexander will be killed, and in its place, would come up four notable horns toward the four winds of heaven, and that would be Alexander's four generals. Of course, we keep going over that, and they would split up Alexander's empire, and then finally, after a few years of splitting it up, Seleucid controlled all of Daniel's northern empire, Syria and Turkey and all the way over he expanded his reign all the way over to India, just like Alexander, that the northern part of the empire. It became the largest part. And it's out of the Seleucid Empire that the little horn comes, that the little horn. And then we look at the little horn, we have to identify him as the Antichrist, because he's the one that goes up to heaven, and he casts down some of the host of heaven, some of the stars to the ground, which is their angels, and he gets up in Christ's face, it says. He gets it, and we'll see that in just a little bit. And so it says the second empire is represented by a ram with two horns. Daniel identifies that as the Medes and the Persians. The third empire is represented as the he-goat and his Greece, led by Alexander the Great. And then the fourth beast, and the majority of Christians misses it, Daniel says that the big horn is broken, 4 notable horns takes his place. Then Daniel makes this revealing statement. He says, therefore the he-goat, Daniel 8, verse 8, waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and in its place came up 4 notable horns. We talked about this. Now here it is. Verse 9, Daniel chapter 8, you need to mark it, you need to read it until it gets into your head, it gets into your heart. And out of one of them came forth a little horn. That's the revelation. When the big horn was broken, 4 notable horns came up in its place, and out of one of those horns, the Grecian Empire came up a little horn. And then we see that the little horn is the Antichrist, which waxed exceedingly great towards the south, towards the east, towards the pleasant land, and it waxed great even to the host of heaven. Now, host of heaven refers to the angels of Jehovah. Who else but the Antichrist would meet that requirement? I mean, no man can go up to the host of heaven. It goes on to say that it cast some of them to the ground. Then it says the little horn gets in Christ's face. Verse 9. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceedingly great towards the south, towards the east, towards the pleasant land, and it waxed great even to the host of heaven. And it cast down some of the host and the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. Then he magnified himself even to the prince of the host. Now the prince of the host is Christ, okay? He magnified himself to the prince of the host. The prince of the host is Christ. And by him, by the Antichrist, the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. He cast Christ's sanctuary down that was in the temple. Okay? And then there were people given him, a host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down truth to the ground. It practiced and prospered. So we can see that this Antichrist came out of one of the little horns. And one of the little horns was the Seleucid Empire that ruled Babylon and made Babylon its capital. And it included Syria, Iran, Iraq, and Turkey, and some of the other major Mideast nations. Okay, so let's see. So the rough he-goat is the king of Grecia. Gabriel explains this. He says to Daniel in Daniel 8, he says, the rough he-goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn between his eyes is the first king. That being broken, 4 stood up in its place, but not in his power. It wasn't as strong as Alexander the Great. And then Alexander's 4 generals split up his kingdom. Ptolemy took the kingdom of the south, which was Egypt, and Seleucus seized control over the northern kingdom, which included Babylon, Syria, and a large portion of Turkey, if not all of Turkey. The 4th kingdom is the Seleucid kingdom. And that is the 4th kingdom. And in the latter days of that kingdom, in the very end of this age, that area right in there, which is Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran, that includes Babylon, will be the power of the Antichrist. All right. Now, history repeats itself. I never could see that. I mean, I wasn't a historian. I didn't even like history. I didn't like maps, didn't like a lot of that stuff until I started teaching eschatology. And then I realized that I had to learn history. But history repeats itself. And God gives a lot of different types in the Bible. You know, he gives Joseph as a type of Christ. He gives David as a king, a type of Christ that is a king. He gives all these. Let's see. He gives types of Christ and types of the Antichrist. Well, the type of this Antichrist in the Seleucid Empire was eventually a man called Epiphanes, Antiochus Epiphanes. It came out, and this guy was a wild man, and he put his name on the coins of the realm as God Manifest, and he ruled. The Seleucid Empire was from like 215 BC to 164 BC, and he ruled, and he did some awful things. He had the Jewish people sacrifice pigs on the altar. He put a statue of Zeus in the in the temple in Jerusalem, and he committed an abomination to God, which in the latter days will be called the abomination of desolation, because Jesus referred to this very scripture when he says, "When you therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken about by the prophet Daniel." See, this has already happened once in history, and history repeats itself, but it already happened before Jesus said that, but Jesus looks to the very end of that, of what that meant. The very end of times. And he said, when you see that abomination of desolation spoken about by the prophet Daniel, then he who reads, let him understand that this is going to start a great tribulation period, in which if you're on the housetop, don't come down to the house. If you're out in the field, don't come back to the house. Get out of Dodge, because stuff's going to break loose. There'll be such tribulation as hasn't been since the world began, or will never be again. All right, let's go on. Let me look here. So here we go again. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when transgressions are come to a full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. This is the Antichrist. His power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. He shall destroy wonderfully, and he prosper in practice. And through his policy he'll cause craft to prosper. He's going to magnify himself in his heart, and by peace he's going to destroy many. He's also going to stand up against the Prince of Princes. This is chapter 8, verse 23 through 27. He's going to stand up against the Prince of Princes, which is Christ. But he'll be broken without hand. And then Daniel fainted and rested a few days, and got up and went about doing the king's business. So, the fourth empire is the empire where the little horn comes up, and the little horn comes up in the Seleucid Empire, which was the four kingdoms that controlled the very same geographical area as Babylon. Remember, the vision of Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel says these are what's going to happen. God's going to show you what's going to happen after you hear it, and in the latter times. He says, these are the kingdoms that are going to replace you. These are the kingdoms that's coming up in your place. It's very simple. It's very straightforward, yet it's very illuminating, far-reaching, and accuracy beyond only a God could put the accuracy of Daniel. So explicit, so beautifully done. Okay, let's see what it says more about the rise of Seleucus. Alexander's generals, the four of them, they jostled for supremacy over part of the empire. Ptolemy became the ruler of Egypt, and And then Seleucus, who was under Perdiccas, he took the kingdom. He assassinated the northern kingdom, and he became the ruler. And then it became his empire, the Seleucian Empire. He not only ruled over Babylon, but the entire enormous eastern part of Alexander's empire. And so let's go down, start looking at the fourth kingdom. Let's look at the fourth kingdom and start with let's start with Daniel chapter 2. Okay. I don't know if I want to go and you know the story about Nebuchadnezzar, and he had a dream and he couldn't remember the dream, and he asked the wise men of the area of Babylon to tell him the dream that he forgot, and they said nobody can do that. And he put out a proclamation to kill all the wise men, and Daniel says, don't be so hasty, let me look at it. And went to the captain of the guard, Arioch, and says, don't let the king be so hasty. Why is the king so hasty? Let me look at this and see what I can, if God won't give me the answer to this. And then he went back to the other three children of Israel, Hamshach, Meshach, and Abednego, and he said, let's pray about this. And then God gave him the answer, and he said, this will be what will be happen. These are the kingdoms that will follow you, and what's going to happen in the latter days. Let's look at what the characteristics of the fourth kingdom is. Daniel chapter 2, verse 40. The fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. Forasmuch as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And where thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. There shall be in it the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes and the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. He's talking about the fourth kingdom here, and it's got a mixture here in the feet. It's got iron and clay. The clay is the weak part. And he says, whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. All right, now let's be real about this. They is something other than the seed of men. They is a different. Is someone else is going to mix with the seed of men. Now, what is the seed of men? Is the seed of men is contained in what is it? Synovial in semen, and with the sperm in the semen, and something is going to be mixed in that seed. That's not going to make a good strong union. They shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. We got to be real about this. And I don't want to scare you away right away, but if you get scared away, you're not listening to Genesis 6. I believe again, Chuck Missler, Wallace Shabbat, Joel Richardson, many men of God believe that there's going to be genetic manipulation with man's seed, and try to make mixtures again, corrupt all flesh. I believe all flesh is going to be corrupted again, trying to be like before the flood, that the angels again are going to cohabit with the women. They're going to pick women, cohabit, and produce seed. They're going to try to mingle, but this is going to try to create a genetic hybrid. And this is one of the salient points of all of Daniel 2, that wickedness is going to be so bad, and that we're going to have demonic angelic intervention in this world. As Satan takes over his kingdom, he wants to mix the races. He wants to contaminate our DNA. Our DNA was contaminated before the flood. Noah was the only one that was perfect in all his generations, and God, all flesh animals and everything had been contaminated by Satan, who is the prince of this world, who is the only one that can offer Christ. He's the only one that can offer Christ the kingdoms of this world. You bow down and worship me, Jesus, and I'll give you the kingdoms of this world. I'll give you whatever you want. That shows he hasn't changed. Nobody stripped him of his power except Christ stripped him of his power. But it hasn't been effectually seen. We haven't seen the manifestation of all this yet. Now, when Jesus comes back in a little bit, he's going to take over the rulership of this world, establish his kingdom, and break the other kingdom. He's going to smash it in the feet, which is the weak place, and it's going to dissolve. So we start out, characteristic of the fourth kingdom is going to be a lot of demonic intervention. A lot of and Revelation says that the Antichrist is given power, but not his power. He's given power by Satan. So let's go to 7 now, chapter 7 of Daniel, verse 1. I'm sorry. After this I saw, it's verse 7. I'm sorry. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful, terrible, strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns, or 10 kings. I considered the horns, or the kings, and behold, there came up among them a little horn, a little king, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were the eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. That's the Antichrist. He's always a mouth speaking great things. The 3 of the horns were plucked up by the roots, and so this little horn plucks up 3. The little horn, and I would know the truth. Verse 19. The fourth beast. And that's a composite beast. That's a composite beast that came up, which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass. Here again, brass is always grease. Brass is always grease. Brass is always grease. Toenails, fingernails, toenails is grease. The evolution of the Grecian Empire, not the western part of the Grecian Empire, but the eastern part of the Grecian Empire, which is the last kingdom on this earth. The evolution of that Grecian Empire, which finally consummates itself in the Islamic Caliphate. All right. This fourth beast devours, breaks in pieces, and stamps the residues with its feet. And of the 10 horns, that's kings, that were in his head, this is a composite beast that Daniel sees, and Revelation sees it in a little bit. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows, I beheld the same horn made war with the saints, and it prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Now, John sees the same thing that Daniel saw in chapter 7. You go to Revelation 13, the beast out of the sea, and you see the same thing. Here's John. He says, I stood up on the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea of humanity. It had 7 heads, that's 7 nations. Had 10 horns, that's kings. And upon his horns, upon his kings, had 10 crowns. So there's, you've got 10 kings and you got 10 crowns here. And upon his heads the name of blasphemy, that 7 Muslim nations wherein the Bismillah and the Shahada, the oaths of Islam. The names of blasphemy is the Bismillah and the Shahada, which says that there's only one God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger, and then it's got the two swords on it of Islam. These are the nations that are rising up out of the sea of humanity. You've got the names of blasphemy on them, and that's important that you mark that down. If I don't get anything else through to you. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, that's Greece. His feet were the feet of a bear, that's Persia. And his mouth as the mouth of a lion, that's Babylon. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. This is a composite beast of the nations that comprise the Middle East. The bear, Persia, Iran, Babylon, and Syria, that area right in there, and feet of a bear, Persia, mouth of a lion, Babylon, and the dragon gave him his power. It's a composite beast. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave him his power, and they worshiped the beast, saying, "Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" And there was given unto the beast a mouth speaking great things, just like Daniel said, and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 40 months. That's 3.5 years. That's the tribulation period. That's the tribulation period. Is 3.5 years. I mean, it's not 7 years. 7 years is the covenant made with the peace covenant, or confirms the covenant with many nations, Jerusalem and many nations. 7 years, and then after 3.5 years, the tribulation, the great tribulation starts. He opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and all that dwelled in heaven. All right, the Basmalah. It means in the name of Allah. It is the Islamic phase in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. The Basmalah. All right. The Shahada is the creed. There's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. This is the blasphemy that is on the heads of the nations that rise up in the very last days. This is the fourth empire with the toes, nails of brass that comes out of the Grecian Empire, which the eastern part of the Grecian Empire, which evolved into the Islamic Empire, and I maybe I'll get to show you that in a minute. So let me go through here. Another observation I made, that not only did the empires that Nebuchadnezzar and Daniel's see occupy the geographical area of the Babylonian Empire, but they also included, if not all of Turkey, at least part of Turkey in their domain. The four empires were Babylon, Medes and Persian, Greece, and Seleucid. Those were the four empires. And they all had Babylon as their capital. And they all included parts of, if not all of, Turkey. This is a big thing, because the little horn and Gog, who is also is the Antichrist. Little horn is Antichrist. All the prophets see him and call him a different thing. The Assyrian is the Antichrist. The Babylonian is the Antichrist. Isaiah sees him as a Assyrian and as the Babylonian. Ezekiel sees him as Gog. But Gog, at the very end, leads this coalition of nations from Turkey. The Antichrist is going to come straight out of Turkey, and going to invade Israel. And the Antichrist may be alive right now, and it may be, I can't say it, Erdogan, the president of Turkey right now. Okay, Uh, let me see what we got here. If I can break this down a little bit better. Okay. All right. Let's see if I can give you a little bit of a timeline, a rough timeline. After we have the Seleucid Empire, then the Seleucid Empire fell to the Parthian Empire. And then the Parthian Empire became a battleground between the Romans and the Parthians. And parts of Mesopotamia came under the Roman rule in a little bit. But then the next empire that came up in the Middle East was Sassanid Persians. And they remained under, in that empire in Babylon became ruled by the Sassanids, and it ruled until the 7th century, until Muhammad started conquering, and it started falling to the rise of Islam. So I'm not a great historian, but let's look. You have Greece, and then it falls to Seleucid. Seleucid falls eventually to the Parthians. The Parthians fall to the Sassanids, 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 and then the Sassanids fall to Muhammad. Then Muhammad starts conquering all these nations in the Mideast right up into the Ottoman Empire in 1400 AD. And it continues to 1921 AD as the Ottoman Empire or the Turkish Empire. Then it is dissolved completely, except Turkey, it was a great empire which never talked about. It was dissolved by the British after World War I, and it will be the empire that is restored. I wish I could say it better. I know some of these guys can say things better, but this is basically what happened. Rome doesn't have anything to do with this, other than they'll be part of a great apostasy. But Islam is the Antichrist religion. It blasphemes God. The warriors right now fighting carry this Bismillah and the Shahada on their head and on their hand. This, according to some, is the mark of the beast. There's going to be goat nations and sheep nations. These nations of Islam are goat nations, and they're going to whole nations are going to be thrown into hell. It says upon the judgment of God, He's going to put the sheep nations on His right, the goat nations on His left, and He's going to judge the nations. So let's see what else we got here that we can say. I may have said about everything I can say. I should show you some maps, and I'll bring in the maps. But you need to get the maps of the Mideast. You need to get the maps. Just download them on your computer. Download the Parthian Empire. Start out. Download the Roman Empire. You'll see that the Roman Empire only made it a little bit past Jerusalem. It didn't ever rule the Mideast. It ruled only up to Jerusalem. Daniel is not concerned with Jerusalem. It's concerned about the geographical area of Babylon, and that area right in there. Rome didn't play any role in Babylon. Hardly, just wars back and forth. But Rome played a role in Jerusalem, but not in Babylon. We don't want to that confused. So get some maps. Get a map of Greece. Get a map of Rome. Look at the boundaries. It'll blow your mind away. Then get a map of the Seleucid Empire, and then get a map of the Parthian Empire and the Sassanid Empire, and then look at the Ottoman Empire. After Muhammad finally takes it all the way down to the Ottoman Empire, take a look at that. Get familiar with the Mideast. Well, I felt impressed to give you the keys to Daniel. I pray that this video is well received and that I've given you some nuggets. I've summarized a lot of things that I've said in prior television and prior video casts, and then I've added some new things. So until next time, I want you to keep looking for the handwriting on the wall.